We're going to do a lot of reading today. I hope that's okay with you. I'll put a lot of screenshots on the screen so you can follow along with what exactly we're talking about here, but our topic revolves around two players of the same family. Because the newest episode of the 32 Thoughts podcast, and yes, I think I'm starting to get a little bit more familiar with calling it that. The 32 Thoughts newest podcast episode has been released, and there indeed was the interview done with Matthew Tkachuk that was actually pretty interesting over here. Furthermore, we had ourselves the signings, or the apparent signings, of PD and Hughes yesterday, leaving Brady Tkachuk as the last man in when it comes to big, notable RFAs who still need contracts. We have ourselves an update from Spectres Hockey going over stuff that Darren Dreger says, so why not take a look at the newest interview with Matthew and take a look at the newest updates with Brady and combine them into one video here together. Sounds like a pretty convenient idea to talk about two NHL teams at once, so let's go ahead and get underway with that. Starting off with Matthew Tkachuk, this is indeed what was put out onto the 32 Thoughts podcast. A link in the description, of course, as always, if you want to go ahead and listen to that yourself. But it is NHL Watcher once again. The big shout-outs over to NHL Watcher, what an MVP over here on Twitter, who posted the quotes that I wanted to discuss. The first quote that is actually posted is the same one we had discussed a few weeks ago, saying, "All this time, I'm in the mix when it comes to Brady and his negotiations. It's a family business. Nobody wants to deal with the Tkachuks in this. We do it by committee." That entire thing was explored in the previous video talking about Kaprizov and Elias Pettersson when discussing the fact that the Tkachuk family is noteworthy for being tough to negotiate with. Keith Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, now Brady Tkachuk, it's all been quite complicated and bothersome for the NHL GMs trying to sign these players. Ultimately, they get the job done, except they probably have to down a few Advils to get rid of the headaches. What I wanted to focus on more, though, was the other quotes here said by Matthew. Here's what he said when talking about the Calgary Flames, his own NHL team. "It's been very average here the past however many years. I mean, that's no secret. I've said it this summer, it really is time. I mean, we don't have forever to change this. We want to win in Calgary. We love it here. I love it here. I think it's a year where something has to happen. We have to take that next step." Now, okay, that's cool, that's fine and dandy, that's a regular quote. A guy on a hockey team is saying, yeah, our team has been okay previously, but we need to be better. We need to win. That stuff is pretty basic, and it's not really anything new, but the real meat and potatoes, the juiciness out of this interview comes in the next series of quotes. "We finished the season 3 points behind Montreal. That's what pissed me off the most, and what made me the most upset. At the end of the day, the team that beat us out by 3 points is playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. I definitely didn't have the greatest summer watching them." And I love this quote, It's definitely not surprising to hear. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if any team in this kind of circumstance would feel the same way. Oh, darn it, man. We just barely missed out in the playoffs, and the team that was barely above us made it to the finals? Darn it, man. That sucks. Like, I get it. That's definitely, a common emotion to express in that scenario over here. But I've always kind of been a fan of Matthew and his interviews because he's always been a little bit more outgoing when it comes to revealing his inner psyche across the microphone. And it's really evident in a lot of the NHL media things that they do. Puck personality and the regular interviews, Matthew's not afraid to speak his mind. And he says it straight up right here. Yeah, it pissed me off watching the Canadiens make it to the finals because we were just behind them. Now, just because they were 3 points behind, in my opinion, does not necessarily mean that the Calgary Flames were just a small magnitude behind the Canadiens in terms of quality of play. There are a lot of differences between the Flames and the Canadiens structurally. Montreal, I think, is a little bit more top-deep. And on paper, the defensive side of the game, goaltending and blue liners, it's all kind of better in Montreal by a quite significant margin. One so that would be a little bit more, let's say, pushy than just 3 points in the standings wide. That's my own personal opinion, you're free to disagree, but that's just kind of how I feel about things. If you tried to map out the regular 2020-2021 season in 82 games, I doubt the Canadiens finished just 3 points ahead of the Flames. There is indeed one more quote that we're going to talk about over here from Tkachuk on the podcast. Matthew was asked what went wrong last season after it looked like it had promised. He mentions they were feeling good after the first couple of games, but then they had a week off. He wasn't using it as an excuse, but he points to a lot of out-of-rhythm stuff. And I think that's another unexplored aspect that a lot of people are going to have to discuss when really reviewing the 2020-2021 season. there would be some times, frequently throughout the year, where you'd have like a full week off or a full 4 or 5 days off. It was not a normal season in the slightest, and rhythm, momentum, carrying from game to game. You play a game one night and you win. The next day it's a day off, but you still have a practice. The day after that, hey, you're back on the ice, you're playing another game at 7. This stuff is important with the rhythm and flow of a hockey team. And so having those big breaks actually puts a big wrench in the middle of your plans, and it's not really like you could go out there and socialize with your teammates anyway. You had to quarantine and stay isolated. So it was pretty strange, the year and how it went down. So Tkachuk acknowledging this, I think, is a pretty interesting thing, and just a pretty noteworthy observation about the year. That's all about Matthew, though. Let's go over onto his younger brother Brady and give a little bit of an update to the contract negotiations. This is the recent piece published on Spectre's Hockey from October 1st. Link in the description to this as always. Here is what Darren Dreger reported last night on the contract talks for the remaining RFAs. A link will be in the description. Secondly, to the TSN link where Darren Dreger discusses this stuff, but when it comes to Brady Tkachuk, sure, we know the trio is training together in Michigan as they await the finalization of their new deals. While the Canucks made progress with Petey and Hughes, discussions are grinding on between the Senators and Tkachuk's representatives. While the relationship remains amicable, Dreger indicates the structure of the deal remains the sticking point. If Brady accepts a long-term deal, Dreger believes he'll want bonus money and no trade protection. If it is a bridge deal, he speculates the AAV could be a little bit too much for the Senators. This is the Spectre's Note part of the piece over here. It says that we did have the 8x8 contract reported by the media, and we also have the entire thing with salary bonuses and all that. Players with signing bonuses in their contracts get that money up front in one lump sum, which is kind of why there would be a desire for that. So we'd seen guys like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner get a big bonus salary lump sum at the beginning of their years, which is why their actual salary earned in those contracts, this is Matthews right here, you can see, it gets a lot lower as the years go on. By the last year of his contract in 2024, he'll be making $7.9 million in that season, but he had made $15.9 million in the first 2 years of the contract. The AAV is 11.6 because AAV is average annual value, the total money that is being paid out to the player divided by the total number of years a contract goes for, so that's kind of the mathematics behind all this stuff. What exactly is the benefit, though? Why would you want to do that? Well, because if you're a young guy, you're 20 years old, you're 21, 22 years old, and you get a contract like this that is front-loaded at the beginning with the lump sum payment of a bonus, you get most of your money at the very beginning there. If you're a young guy, you're guaranteeing you're getting that money in your bank account, and as we know about the Senators and Eugene Melnyk and the way he runs his team, they very seldom give out salary bonuses, and as a result, it's kind of why there's that reputation of the Senators being a cheap team because they don't want to pay their players. If Tkachuk does indeed want some beefy salary bonuses in order to accept a long-term deal like Dreger is noting, it's going to be difficult for Eugene Melnyk to at least give the go-ahead to be like, okay, well, we'll give you $10 million on your total first year because we're going to include salary bonuses there. It's just not really Ottawa, isn't it? Furthermore, on the last part, the trade protection thing, it says right here on Spectres that as per Cap Friendly, Tkachuk is not eligible for no trade protection until he's played 7 NHL seasons because he made his NHL debut at age 19. That means it wouldn't kick in under his new contract until after the 4th season, meaning that this shouldn't be too difficult of a thing to settle down because you don't have any options there. You're not allowed to get no trade protection until the 4th season of whatever contract he signs. So all this stuff going down with Brady, this update here from Dreger, no trade protection, salary bonus money. This is the kind of thing the Ottawa Senators are apparently thinking about when it comes to Brady Tkachuk and the contract negotiation extension talks. So talk to me in the comments, what do you think? Firstly, about Matthew Tkachuk and the comments he made about how he's pissed off the Habs made the finals. And secondly, about Brady and the contract negotiations. It's a little bit weird now talking about this because Brady is no longer a piece of a bigger body of unsigned RFAs. He is now the only one that is quite notable to the point of actually having a discussion about. Because Petey and Hughes are apparently signed now, they're going to leave Michigan, right? They're going to come back to Vancouver, and Brady is going to be all alone. So yeah, big changes, I guess. Talk to me in the comments, though. What do you think about all of the comments we discussed over here from Darren Dreger, Matthew Tkachuk, and the Brady negotiations as well? Are you in any way worried about Brady Tkachuk and these negotiations? Are we going to see a William Nylander holdout until December like we did 3 years ago? Talk to me in the comments. I hope you enjoyed. This video was Ross99, and bye.